When I was in middle school, I took the city bus to school because my parents couldn't drive me, and no school buses routed to my neighborhood. I didn't live in a particularly good place, but I never felt unsafe, probably because I was a kid and thought myself invincible. That morning, I got on the bus to go to school, 6th grade at the time, so I was about 12. But let me tell you, I have always looked much younger than my age. It was decently crowded, so I go to my usual spot in the back. A few stops go by, and then a man gets on and sits right next to me. It's been about 10 years now, but I still remember how he looked. Tall, thin, Hispanic, with long straight black hair. There was maybe 1 or 2 seats open, so it wasn't weird that he was next to me at first. I just figured he sat in the first seat he saw open. Then he started to talk to me. I can't remember what he said at first, but being early in the morning and already pissed that I had to share my space with him, I just made vague disinterested noises at him. Then he asked where I was going. That's when my spidey senses started to tingle, because obviously it is very early in the morning and I am a child, so I'm going to school. So I said, school, in a, duh kind of way. I realized how he was probably looking for me to tell him which school. A few stops went by, and the bus opened up more, so I quickly went and found another empty seat. Not 5 minutes later, he follows and sits right next to me again and still tries to get me to talk to him. He asks my name. I look to the front of the bus and see some 8th graders that I know from school and from riding this bus. My animal brain screams at me to find safety in the pack. I move up to the front of the bus and plant myself in the middle of them and basically press myself into them and give them help me eyes. The guy moves again and sits directly in front of me. He asks my name again, and one of the boys I'm sitting with, G, quickly calls me by a fake name and turns his body so he's kind of shielding me and carries on a conversation with me until we get to our school. The group of 8th graders basically formed a circle around me, and we huddled off the bus, and I turned to make sure the creep didn't follow us off the bus. Thankfully, he didn't follow, but for the next few weeks, I caught either the earlier or later bus in case he was on it again, and since the bus stop was right in front of my school, I was afraid he knew where I went and would show up, but I never saw him again, so let's not meet, bus creep. I'm so thankful those kids were there to help me. I don't know if that guy might have thought I was younger than I looked, so possibly elementary school age, and thought I was young and stupid enough to trust him with more personal information. So it's been a couple of years since this has happened, but it still bothers me to this day. I was in college, and I lived in a house with 5 roommates. I lived on the 2nd floor, and the way it was set up is important. There were 4 bedrooms on the 2nd floor, and 2 bathrooms. 2 of the bedrooms each shared a bathroom, which was accessible only by the bedrooms, not the hall. So, I could walk through the bathroom into my roommate's room, and vice versa. My door had both a handle lock and a deadbolt, which I used every single night because it was a habit. Because in dorms, drunk roommates or floor mates tend to wander in and wreak havoc if you don't. A door to the bathroom, however, didn't have a lock, so I could never secure that. One of my roommates had her boyfriend visiting, and he'd brought a friend with him. I hadn't spoken to the friend or gotten to know him at all, and I didn't really have any opportunities to, since I didn't hang out in any of the common areas of the house, and frequently didn't even sleep there because I was casually seeing someone at the time. My first interaction with him was about 2 days into his visit. I was coming home around 6 a.m. from the house of the guy I was seeing, and I walked into the living room. When I came in, the visitor was alone and shirtless in my kitchen, which is open to the living room. He didn't even say hello. He just angrily asked me, "Where were you?" Which I was taken aback by, because he sounded like a jealous boyfriend. But I had told him I had been at my boyfriend's house, and he said, "You didn't tell me you had a boyfriend." Well, of course I hadn't told him. I've never spoken to him. I made a weird face at him and went upstairs and didn't see him again for the rest of the day. I slept in my own room that night, deadbolt secure. I woke up at around 7 the next morning to him entering my room from the bathroom. Before I could say anything, he saw that he woke me up and said, "Sorry, I was looking for the bathroom." I replied, "Well, you're standing in it, so..." And he retreated and closed the door. I didn't think much of it at the time because I was groggy and I just fell back to sleep. Now, despite all that, up to this point, he didn't really creep me out. He just seemed weird. But later that day is when it got worse. I came home from my classes and went up to my room. He followed me and let himself into my room without knocking. The door had been closed, and I made it clear that wasn't okay, but he was being friendly. So we chatted normally for a couple of minutes because I didn't want to be rude. And then he decided to say, "I think you're the one. The first moment I saw you, I knew you were the one, and you're going to marry me." Obviously, I was taken aback by this, as this was only our third interaction, and we'd spoken for maybe 2 minutes. I told him that I had no interest in marrying him, that I wasn't even attracted to him, and told him to leave me alone. I decided to leave and called the guy I was seeing and told him what was going on, and he told me I could stay over at his house until this weirdo left. A couple of days go by, and the weirdo was supposed to leave for good, so I went back to my house. I slept in my room that night with the door locked, as usual. I woke up to hear someone trying to come in through my main door, but thought it was just one of my many roommates. Then, I hear the bathroom door open and someone walking into my room. I rolled over and he was standing maybe a foot away from my bed and said, "Hey beautiful, where have you been?" I said, "Weren't you supposed to leave? Why the fuck are you in my room?" He said, "I wanted to wait for you to come home. I couldn't leave without saying goodbye." And then he tried to climb into my bed with me and kept touching me while saying, "Scoot over. I want to say goodbye properly." To which I started yelling, "Get the fuck out of my room. I didn't invite you in. Leave now." I smacked his hands away from me and he got upset, but left without much of a fight. I immediately left my house and went to my boyfriend's. The guy did finally leave later that morning. Afterward, I told my friend what her guest had done, and she said, "Well, you must have let him on then." Which then prompted me to ask her how I could have let him on, if I'd never really even had a conversation with him. She then proceeded to blame all his actions on me, and tell me I should have been flattered, and given him a chance. I just walked away from her at that point, and never talked to her again that year, and haven't since. The next day, despite me yelling profanities at him and telling him how creepy he was when I'd last seen him in my room, the guy still decided to find me on Facebook and try to add me. Nope. Blocked immediately. So, creepy guy, and my roommate who defended him, let's not meet again. Well, since I told you guys the story of my first creepypasta encounter, I figured I'd tell the story of my last one. So this time, I was in high school, freshman or sophomore, so about 14 or 15 years old, but still looked much younger. I still rode the city bus to school, because again, no school buses routed to my neighborhood. My mom could have dropped me off at that time, but she started work at 8, and my school started at 9. So I was not interested in being at school at around 7:15. I also, for whatever reason, had not told her about my first creepy encounter. That morning, I get on the bus as usual. It's not empty, but not full. I was part of JROTC in high school, and that day was my uniform day, so I'm wearing my uniform. If you've ever seen female military uniforms, you know that they're the least flattering thing in the world. I include this description in case there are any chuckle fucks out there who think what you're wearing when you get creeped on make a difference. So I'm sitting in my seat, surrounded by my big ass backpack and guitar case from my music class. Suddenly, this dude just materializes in front of me. I look up and see this guy, average height, sandy colored thin hair, and drug skinny with a tweaker face, so he could be anywhere from 20 to 40 years old. He stands awkwardly in front of me and then thrusts his arm out and holds a folded piece of paper in front of me. He gestures for me to take it, and it's so early in the morning and I'm so confused that I take it and he walks away. I open it and read it. It's a note he wrote that said something along the lines of, "Hey, my name is Creep and I've been watching you for a while now, but I'm switching buses soon, so here's my phone number. Call me," and had a number written down. I can barely process what I've just read, and I can just feel his eyes on me. I arrange my stuff in my empty seats around me like a barrier, and when my stop comes, I fly off the bus. I ran to the ROTC building where I would usually hang out before school. I burst into the building and basically tackled one of the ROTC instructors and clung to him, shaking like a leaf and crying, holding the note and talking incoherently. Now, our instructor was obviously retired military. He took the note from me and read it, and got the most steely-eyed look. He sat me down in a chair and walked over to the school phone on the table. He calmly dialed a number, and that dumb, creepy motherfucker answered. My instructor asked if his name was Creep. The guy said yes. Then he quickly told him that he was my father, and asked why in the fuck did you, a grown man, give my 14-year-old child your phone number. The Creep basically just went, while my instructor released a stream of very experienced, ex-military based threats until he could hear the guy just about shit his pants. He finally told him never to contact me again and hung up, and gave me a huge smile and a hug. I was smiling through my tears at that point, having listened to his tirade. I called my mom, told her what happened, and she came down to the school and went and filed a police report. I told her I was never getting on a city bus again, and I didn't care if I had to be at school 2 hours early. I wanted her to drop me off until I could drive. So that's what happened. That instructor was always my favorite teacher, and I still go visit him, even after graduating college. I imagine someday at my wedding, he'll tell this story. This is a current, ongoing problem. I'm young, 19, moved states about 6 months ago, and now live with 2 roommates. Our house is built in an interesting way. The living room of the house next door to us is my bedroom, so I essentially have what used to be a kitchen and the entire living room as my own personal space, with a wall separating me from the neighbor's house. I have 3 doors, one to get into my room from the hallway, another that connects to the kitchen and is right next to my neighbor's other door, and the other living room door that is right next to my neighbor's front door. I'm only describing the setup because it's easier to explain how exactly my neighbor watches me and essentially stalks me through our shared wall. The issue with our neighbor, Bethany, is that she hates whoever lives in my part of the house. There's bad juju that went on between her and 2 previous tenants a couple of years before me. Bethany is quite old, has 1 cat. We're not allowed to have pets in a housing unit, but she's been grandfathered in. Always has her brother over. He's a bully and a dick, and just outright dislikes all of us who live here. Bethany has another neighbor on the other side of her house, but Catherine is barely home, so I doubt she's had to go through any of what I do. Anyways, as of the last 2 months, Bethany has gotten extremely stalkerish. She doesn't follow me or my roommates, but she watches and listens. She will not start bothering me until she goes out and watches one of my roommates leave and go to their car, which she can do because she has 2 doors to get outside. Bethany's front door is the longest route and passes her living room, which she will openly watch you from. The other is connected to her bedroom, I assume, where she'll either stand on her side of the porch or hang out her window while flipping one of us off as we pass. It's annoying, and that's all it was at first. Just fucking petty shit to show that she really didn't like us. Until she started knocking. Now, my wall isn't super thin, In fact, you need to be really loud to even be heard. I was already told before moving in that Bethany was somewhat hostile towards whoever lived in my room, so I should just be wary of sounds. I have one large TV in the corner and a desk with a computer, but I rarely use them. Bethany, on the other hand, has a TV right behind where mine is, on her side of the wall. When I was home alone or getting home late, Bethany would take the time to gently knock on the door right next to mine and say in this fucking creepy sing-song voice, "I know you're home." Or if I had an Amazon package or some type of delivery back home, she would start banging the package against my door and in her creepy sing-song tone say, "Come out. You have a package. You have a package. You have a package." She'd do this for about a few weeks straight because I was getting gifts from my family around December when this picked up. My birthday is in December, and also getting packages containing school supplies, home stuff, etc. It was fucking chilling because she was physically waiting for me to be home. I know that the air pressure is heard and felt faintly when the very front door of our house opens, as well as the side kitchen in which I come in from. But you'd really have to be listening to know I'm coming in my room. So, from December to the beginning of January, Bethany would pick up my packages from my door and just throw them at it. Not hard enough to damage them, but enough to get my attention. Sometimes she'd be really angry I wasn't answering, and others, she'd just continue being weird as hell. Our head roommate didn't deem it behavior that should get her kicked out, but she did tell our landlord, and the landlord had apparently told Bethany she needed to quit, or next time, the police were getting called because she was disturbing our part of the property. Since then, she had limited to just screaming at us as we passed or furiously flipping me off. Whatever. She wasn't touching my stuff anymore. That's what mattered most. However, as of the last 2 weeks, she's gotten belligerent. At all hours of the day, beginning at around 4 to 5 a.m., she'll sing loudly towards my wall, and not just any part, but directly in front of my bed. My bed faces the wall on the other side, and it's fucking creepy. She'll sing shit like, "I can hear you on the phone, you fucking cunt, you're such a bitch, turn off your electricity." It's not insulting, I'm just confused. What the fuck is her problem? She'll bang really hard when it gets too quiet on my end, and scream obscenities. She knows when I'm showering, as a few times she screamed loud enough for me to hear, through my bathroom wall. "You slut! Turn the fucking water off!" A few times, she's gone out on both our porches and screamed at me, through the door, even more things. The things she says shows that she listens to what I'm doing. Like, I'm FaceTiming my mom and she'll say, "Turn your fucking phone off." I'm playing video games at volume 2 on my very quiet TV and she'll scream, "I can hear those damn video games." Even worse, when I'm on the phone with my boyfriend, we FaceTime to fall asleep. I've heard her say, not screaming, "He snores too loud." It's fucking frightening. Lately, the noises, banging and the watching have increased by a shit ton. My head roommate is a kind and gentle soul, so she's hesitant to take any action right away. I'm pretty sure these little outbursts are going to turn into her threatening me, or even worse, trying to get into one of my doors. I don't believe she's been diagnosed with anything, which of course I've considered. I've met Bethany, but I don't really want to meet Bethany at all on my own. I might punch her in the face, or get in a fight, as I don't take well to being intimidated or listened to when I'm in my private zone. So, Bethany, next time we meet, neighbor, it ain't gonna be pretty. I'll keep it updated on her behavior. She's quite violent, as I've heard her screaming and throwing shit at her cat and brother who come by, and it's honestly frightening. Once more, Bethany, I don't want to see you alone in person. We're gonna have an issue. Update. It's currently 2:15 a.m. on March 1st. We have called the cops. Bethany was screaming profanities through the wall, banging at around 1:14 to 1:20 a.m. and fighting with someone who we assume was her brother, physically and verbally. My roommate called our landlady, then her close friend for advice, and even sat with me in my room listening to everything. It was enough to make me call the cops. They did come, but Bethany quickly played nice despite evidence of recordings. We recorded her earlier tonight around 9:47 p.m. to 10 p.m., then from 1:24 to 1:35. I also have a few meek recordings from yesterday at 4 to 5 a.m. At the time the police came, Bethany was blasting her TV at high volume and yelling at her cohort from next door. We could hear them asking her to turn it down because he could hear it just from walking up the block, and she demanded which neighbor called it in. I believe she knows it was us, but I don't care if she does. My roomie is a little shaken, as this is the first 911 call she has ever made, and for everyone wondering why it didn't happen sooner, she's very non-confrontational, and I appreciate that. We asked the officers who were being sent to speak with us first, so we could show them these recordings, so they knew we weren't just being nitpicky about noise and such, that she's taking this to a further level. They then did their checkup, which Bethany did comply with, to be fair. I don't know if this is the end of it, and I have a gut feeling it's not exactly squashed. Our landlady, who we left a message for, will need to speak with her. Although the police meeting was short and really uneventful, this is essentially strike two for Bethany. I hope something comes out of this, truly. When I was a tween, maybe 13 or 14 years old, we lived in a nice, upper middle class gated community. We felt very safe and secure in our home, and never really worried about burglars or anything. One Sunday morning, we returned from church around 11 a.m. to find the front door wide open. We did always lock the door, no matter how safe we felt in our neighborhood. We immediately found my dad's briefcase open in the side yard with the hinges broken and the contents strewn everywhere. We entered the house, expecting to find it trashed and emptied of all valuables, but it looked exactly the same. We called the police and filed a report, and they informed us that the lock on the front door had not been tampered with. The other doors were locked, and no windows were broken. Only later did we discover what had been stolen: a chocolate cake that my mom had made and left on the counter, and half a gallon of milk.